Okay, so then what do we have to do? Let's just say I've gone through a really terrible breakup and it happened, I don't know, let's just say, okay, great, we've ended it. This was a week ago. I'm in the fetal position. What do I do?
In this stage, your body is going to tell you that you should stay at home and isolate yourself. You will have no appetite because you are in a fight, flight, freeze response. And so the blood flow is going to actually go to the major muscle groups of your body, and your appetite becomes like last priority. You're not going to want to move your body. You need to fight against these natural urges, and you have to be around people where you feel safe and supported with. Their nervous system will entrain yours and help you get more centered. You need to exercise. You need endorphins because you are in a deficit of feel-good chemicals, and you have to force yourself to eat. I don't care if you down a green smoothie. That's what I had to do. But if you can't get those basic things together, there is no way you can start repairing your heart.
Okay, so that's step number one. We have to eat, drink. We have to act like a human.
Yes, exactly.
That's what step number one is.
I'd say step number two is this is your time to process your feelings, to feel it all. And the way that you're going to do this is you talk to friends. You can tell your friends how to best support you. So during this time, you do not want people to be like, it happened for a reason. Like, you don't want people to bash your ex. That's not going to be helpful at all because you'll still be protective over your ex, even if they did something terrible. So you're going to actually feel really bad if people start saying bad things about them. You don't want advice. This is not the time. This is your time to be able to talk about it, and find those people who are willing to hold space for you. A really great hack for you at this time is to do flow state journal writing. So put a timer on for about 10 minutes, put your pen to paper. You cannot take your pen off until the timer goes off. And you start with the prompt, I feel, and you just write. And you'll find that suddenly you'll go like, oh, and then the trees are green and I should eat a donut. Just keep writing. What this does is it's almost like debugging the mind, and it allows all this stuff that's floating around in your psyche to come out on paper. And it tells your mind like, oh, I've dealt with this. So it can help you decrease your rumination later on because you're like, oh, I already dealt with this right now. So at 2 p.m., 5 p.m., I don't have to think about it again.
Wow. I mean, if I looked back on a journal in that stage, it would read like some sort of horror.
Yeah.
A horror novel. Okay. And then what do we do after that?
Yeah. And this stage is going to take some time, right? Okay. And I know people are like, well, how long is it? But like, yeah, as I mentioned, around 6 to 8 weeks, there's been some studies that show that's how the intensity kind of hits a peak and then it can start to subside. But if you're still communicating with your ex, if you're still hooking up with your ex, your body doesn't get the memo that you guys are broken up.
Yeah, it's hard because you're like, how do I, because I know that in the future we could possibly be friends and I don't want to get rid of something that has been in my life for 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And it's hard to come to terms with.
For sure. And if there's any possibility of you becoming friends or maybe coming back together again in the future as new people to create a new relationship, it will not happen if you do not have space in between to allow that dynamic to move from intimate to platonic. There's just no way. It's way too confusing. And a lot of the times the person doing the breaking up will want to stay friends because 1, it helps them not feel guilt. 2, it gives them the emotional connection without any responsibility. So don't be a sucker and continue being your friend and being that person that you chat together and share good news or talk about stressors because you're just going to keep staying bonded while they've already decided that it's over.
I think to myself about repeated patterns. I'm sure you've seen this often. Does that mean that we didn't learn and take the time to learn about our past mistakes? Like, have you seen people who they end a relationship, maybe they've gone through all of this and then they end up back into a relationship where they've chosen the exact same person?
Yeah, I would say, so a lot of the times people are like, well, I don't have a type. And I have them do an exercise, and listeners can do this too. Look at the last 3 people you dated, write it down on a piece of paper, write down the 5 main emotions you felt with each person, and then circle to see if there's anything common. And most of the time people see there's an emotion or 2 that continue to appear. So the emotional experience is the same. They might look different, the jobs might be different. That's not the type I'm talking about. If there's an emotional experience that continues to repeat, that is a pattern that you might want to look at and see how are you accountable for creating this emotional experience over and over again.
Yeah. Isn't it as simple as, because you talk about the science, I'm a very logical thinker. If it's like, okay, this is who I am, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want. Isn't it so much easier just to go out and be like, who are you? What do you want? Do you want the same things as me? Can we come together and create something?
I think, having clear communication is an incredible sign. And I think that it's important to not get too caught up in what you think you want. I would say when I'm working with single people looking to create a healthy relationship, a lot of them have a list and they have rules as well. And I know for me, I had a rule when I lived in New York that I don't date finance guys. I just
Have you heard that song?
Yeah.
I'm looking for a man in finance.
I'm like, that's the opposite. I just had this rule. And I remember telling my friends, I was like, hey, everyone, like, I'm ready for a relationship really now. And I asked one of my friends, Vishal, like, do you know anyone? And he's like, actually, I know a guy that I think could be a really great fit for you. And he shows me a photo. And I look at the photo and in my head, I'm like, oh no, that's a finance guy. I'm like, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
And I said no. And a year later, I matched with that guy. It was not that photo. And he's now my boyfriend for 5 years.
Oh,
and he shares with me now, it's so funny, that photo that my friend showed me was a day of him skiing for the first time, falling on his ass on the bunny hill over and over again. And he was just sitting down, exhausted. And I looked at that, I was like, oh no, that's a cocky finance guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like the thing, and I'm a relationship expert.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we get in our own way because we're like, no, I know I want this. I need this. And you don't.
yeah.